A very good morning from Rawcliffe Bar Park and Ride in York, England. I'm looking forward to getting into the historic city centre and joining the stampede of tourists having a look around. But before I do that, let me give you a quick tip. If you are driving to York, then consider not taking your car into the congested, overpriced city centre where you're going to pay a fortune for parking. Instead, there are a number of park and ride sites dotted around the outskirts of the city. There's hundreds of free parking spaces available. The buses run all day and into the evening, and a return fare on the park and ride bus itself is just under £4. Hopefully it is going to take the stress and hassle out of taking my car into York, so we'll see what happens. In any event, the park and ride bus is over there. It's going to leave in a minute, so let's go and see if we can catch a ride. So just 15 short minutes later, I've made it into the city centre. That was pretty easy. York, by the way, is a city of about 150,000 people. It is situated almost perfectly halfway between London and Edinburgh, so if you're making that drive, it's a no-brainer. You've got to stop by. And it's also a city that is steeped in an incredible amount of history. Thousands of years the history goes back here, and we'll get to that in just a short time. But before I talk about it, I want to go to my first stop, which is the National Railways Museum of York. It is also the largest railways museum in the world, so let's go take a look. Turns out it's free to get into the museum, but they do encourage a charitable donation which you can give at any time during your visit, and all the money made from that donation comes back into preserving the museum for future generations, so definitely worth doing if you can. That right there tells me all about this footbridge. I'll give you a bit of information in a second. Pretty spectacular footbridge at that. But this is the Mallard, which set the record for the fastest steam locomotive in history. 126 miles an hour it achieved in, I think, 1938. And as I'm making my way up here, this is a footbridge taken from Percy railway station near Newcastle. It was built in 1891, and I was about to make the point that here at the museum there are over 600 exhibits in place. There's a cafe down there and a shop, as well as somewhere under reconstruction. And if I come round here, you'll see just a load of steam trains and other engines as well. This used to be York North Locomotive Depot until 1975, when they turned it into the museum, and the museum took over the British Railways collection. Over there is a turntable where they used to turn the trains around here inside the depot. So just over there are some historical signals used over the last few hundred years. There's also lots of different signal boxes, signs from various stations, even the gates from the original Euston station before they pulled down part of it. Caused a bit of an uproar in London because of the fact that they were destroying Victorian architecture. There's also the Japanese bullet train that reached speeds of over 120 miles an hour in the 1960s. And there's another view of that magnificent footbridge with the Mallard passing underneath. The info boards here at the museum are really good. This one's telling me about carriages from around 1834, saying that these are the oldest and most complete set of carriages anywhere in the world, and they show the different classes of travel, first, second and third, available to travellers in the 19th century. And if we come back to this, is a second class carriage, and back in those days the second class carriages didn't always have windows, as shown there. Here's another second class carriage, a little bit fancier, it's got a bit of paint on it, and a third class carriage right there as well. Sometimes they didn't even have roofs, and sometimes they didn't even have seats. There we go, that is a good example of that. This is a hand truck used by miners going back to the 15th century, and back in those days the tracks that they used to push those things along, just manually by the way, push them along, or maybe use horses or something like that. The tracks were made of wood, replaced by iron in about 1825. And then various examples as you go through the ages of different railway trucks. Here's a tramway truck from 1826, look at that, that was used to carry all kinds of hardcore material and pulled by horses rather than an engine. And then at the end here, look at this, this is a pretty cool little engine dating back from 1829. So I was just having a look around and spotted that there is a north shed entrance just here. Didn't even know that this was around, nearly missed it.
So in this section of the museum we're going to find lots of smaller exhibits, including old tannoy systems, stained glass windows from stations, signage that was used all across platforms and various railway, fine china used in locomotives, including silver sterling trays and servers, lighting and lamps that would light up the railway and various stations across the country, even old ticket machines. And it even has, if you look over to my right, the oldest working model railway system in the world. It was used by the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway Signalling School in 1912, and there's even a photo of it on display at an exhibition in Wembley in 1925. It was used as an essential part of the training of new signalmen, and it trained them in the safe operation of trains using signals, points and bell codes to control train movement around the layout.
We have a Eurostar train coming out of the tunnel, presumably arriving from France. And then speaking of model railways from the last clip, this is on the other side of the Great Hall now, lots of carriages and trains. And look at this. I have officially made it to the city walls. There are some maps here telling me where I'm going. I'm going to head to the top. The history of this city is entwined with these walls and with these fortifications. It was the Romans who began building fortifications around the city about 2,000 years ago. This is what the Roman walls and fortress looked like in about 71 CE. You can see it's a rectangular shape. The Romans left the city in about 410. In the 9th century, Danish Vikings invaded. They destroyed the Roman walls, or most of them anyway, and they ended up erecting their own fortifications, mostly made of wood, and they sat here for the next several hundred years.
There are 4 main gates into the city of York. The gates are called bars, and this one is called Monk Bar. Some of the roads that access the city, you have to go down onto the road and then back up again, which is what I'm doing.
themselves a hotel, restaurant and champagne garden called Gray's Court. Looks nice, the garden's all set up. There's the hotel in the foreground and the cathedral in the background. In about the 18th century, this entire wall structure was nearly removed because it was seen as a bit of a burden, a bit of an eyesore by the local council. But they were persuaded not to remove it as many other English cities did with their walls in the 19th century, because the locals saw it as part of the city. Coming out now back down to the street. The very top of the walls were rebuilt about 150 years ago after centuries of neglect. That was so that people could get up there safely and enjoy a walk around the entire wall network, which by the way is about 3.5 kilometres, about 2 miles to get all the way around the city. It is free to access, so you don't have to pay anything to go up there, and the walls themselves are about 4 metres high by 2 metres across. Just spotted this church, York Oratory, St Wilfrid's Catholic Church. It is open. Thought I would just dive in and have a quick look. Look at that detail up there on those figurines and statues. Just poke my head in if I'm allowed and just see what it's like in here. Betty's tea room must be pretty good because people are literally queuing to go inside. Down there in amongst the roadworks is Bootham Gate on the left, another one of those famous city gates, and then some incredible architecture as well just down the street. A lot mixture of different types of buildings, and as I come around we go from a church to a citadel, a minster, York Minster to be precise. This is 72 metres high, it's the crown jewel of the city, 160 metres long, and we are going to go inside and have a look. Okay, we have started our climb up to the tower. It costs £6. That's where we are already. You're going to get better views than that though. On top of the £16, making the entire trip £22 to get in and up to the top of York Minster. 275 of these steps. Let's keep going. That's what we're dealing with. And we've reached 275 to go. I can see natural light. Oh man. Oh yeah, there we go. 275. That's what I was looking for. Oh man. We are going to get some views. Up here I can tell you that this is the largest Gothic cathedral in Northern Europe, and the views from up here are spectacular, as you've just seen a second ago. Time to head down, I think, and explore the cathedral itself. That's the door I've just come out from. That's where I've been. And this is where I'm heading, back down a few more steps. I've made it back down again now. That was quite a climb up, quite an effort to get down as well. I'm in the main cathedral now,
This cathedral was the product of 250 years of building, completed in 1472. It is one of only 2 churches in the world that I'm aware of anyway that employs its own police force, the other one being St. Peter's in Vatican City. I'm looking now at the south wall and something called the Rose Window that commemorated the end of the War of the Roses. Detail in some of these statues is phenomenal. There's so much of it. This is the chapter house. Stage is set up for some kind of musical event. But what a place to hold it. Look at these stained glass windows. This very grand dome right at the top. Look at that. The detail once again is just magnificent. A rather grand astronomical clock. Just passing by it, I saw this sign. It is dedicated to the men of the Royal Air Forces working from bases in Yorkshire, Durham and Northumberland who were killed during the Second World War. They went through the air and space without fear, and the shining stars marked their shining deeds. Pretty spectacular clock. We're about to head down to the crypt. First of all, over here, it's the remains of a 4th century Roman fortress down there. We've got some historical fonts, and then as I come through here, there should be there we go, a mosaic. Blessed are the peacemakers. It's an extremely detailed and vibrant mosaic. I don't know how old that is. And then over here is the tomb of Saint William, the patron saint of York, the only saint to be buried here in the cathedral.
Got a little country and western here in the centre of the city. Lots of nice flowers, the sun's come out again. And up there, the Shambles Market. Welcome to Britain's best large outdoor marketplace. Let's go and have a look. So the Shambles are a series of some fixed and some these more movable market stalls. The area was renovated in about 2014. Lots of medieval, really crazy looking buildings around. The renovation cost was about 1.6 million. There's 86 of these stalls now, selling everything from handbags to phone cases, fruit, vegetable, food, clothes, haberdashery, all kinds of memorabilia. And if I come through this little passageway here, this might become familiar to any Harry Potter fans out there. This little medieval street. Not so much that way, but up this way. There we go. This is the famous Street of York. You've got to come here if you're visiting the city. This has got to be another one of those famous shops because there is a queue of people waiting to get in. Yeah. Interesting looking sign here. There's a map of the Shambles. So this is the little narrow street that I've just walked up. There is the food court and all the market stalls. Just there you see. The market historically used to be on Parliament Street, which is over there. Pretty cool area. Just around the corner from York Minster, you can hear the bells now sounding, is the Guy Fawkes Inn. This is a place famous for the guy himself, no pun intended, who, if you know your English history and a bit of trivia, he's the guy that was born in 1570, but he ultimately tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament in London and was hung, drawn and quartered for it in 1606. He was born here. Well, I've made it up to the impressive Clifford's Tower here in York. This was once part of a very grand castle system built in the 11th century by William the Conqueror. It is now the only remaining section of the original castle. I'm going to call it a day with the video, so thanks very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed my day in York as much as I did, and I will definitely catch you in the next video.